Hi there, it's me again, fresh off the YouTube walkout. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can refer to my last two videos for more info. And I have to say, since the purpose was to get us moving and working towards a future action, I personally think it was a great success. And the best thing was the overwhelming solidarity with absolutely nothing but positive comments to drive us forward. Now, I bet you're running down to the comment section right now to fire off your hot take on that idea, but just hold on a sec before you go owning me with your facts and logic, because this video isn't about the walkout. While there is more to come, that phase is over, and I've already said my piece. What I want to talk about today is how we handle ourselves and how we treat others in online discourse. So, I've got not 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, but 10 tips that might make your stay on the inner sphere a more productive and enjoyable one. The internet is an endless field of ideas, full of the good, the bad, and the weird. And through all of that, you'll of course find plenty of crossfire. I'm definitely guilty of contributing to this myself, as we all probably are, but I thought I'd go over some general de-escalation methods to help everyone create a more productive, understanding, and hopefully more enjoyable online experience. I want to preface these tips by saying these are meant to be methods of de-escalation in general discourse. This is not how to debate fascist 101, because for me, that one's easy. Just don't. These are simply some ideas of how we can conduct ourselves to minimize tension in order to build something better. Tension is too often the enemy of productive discourse. With that said, there definitely are times when tension is useful, especially in struggles to make your voice heard. There are situations where you have every right, sometimes even the responsibility, to be angry. Tone policing is a suppressor of revolutions, but this guide is assuming there is at least a sliver of good faith or some opportunity to come to an understanding. Not every interaction demands civility. If these tips are given consideration and found to not apply, then by all means, use your passion to speak up or protect others. But at least try to consider if your outrage is to uphold your beliefs or just to appease your ego. The first thing we can do when engaging in a disagreement, whether online or offline, is to listen. Listen to what others are trying to say. It's easy to read something and make an immediate reaction, especially when you see certain aggressive phrases, but allow yourself to step back for a moment and consider what the other person is really trying to say. Is it possible you misunderstood them, or maybe they stated their intention poorly? This is stupid, while worded quite poorly, might really mean, I don't understand this, or I don't see how this is a good idea. Sure, it could have been stated a lot less aggressively, but just because they fell short in their wording doesn't mean you have to match their aggression, which only escalates the tension. Yes, they could have used a lot less aggressive wording like, I don't think this is a good idea, but even then you might find yourself still wanting to immediately come back with a rebuttal. Before you do though, think for a second about what they might really be trying to convey. Is it possible they were trying to say, from what information I have, I'm making the best judgment I can? Not having a good grasp on the situation, or even just having an opposing viewpoint, doesn't mean this person is necessarily trying to be shitty and deserving of your masterful takedown. These are teaching moments. Don't waste them by trying to be the superior debater. Many times there are past experiences that have jaded or confused the other person, and while some people are indeed just being shitty with zero good faith, there are some cues that you can look for to help you decipher their true meaning. Look for clues like personal anecdotes. Things like, from what I've seen or in my experience, might give you a hint that you're dealing with someone who's been injured or might simply need a lifeline. A really good example of this is a tweet thread from comedian Sarah Silverman. Silverman received an extremely vicious comment that honestly didn't warrant her response at all, but she was able to turn it around into an amazing opportunity. Now, I'm not saying you should respond kindly to comments like this at all. This person was being straight up abusive and wasn't deserving of any charity or good faith. However, Silverman seems to be quite thick-skinned and in a secure place with herself, so she actually did decide to take it on. She took it even further than what I'm suggesting and checked out the commenter's profile, looking for clues. It turns out the abusive commenter was in a horrible place in their life and was lashing out at everyone he could. With some compassionate words, she was able to start a productive conversation that led him to apologize and admit that he was abused, in poverty, and dealing with severe back trauma that he couldn't afford to fix. She eventually ended up rallying support that helped him get his surgery, and now he's trying to help other people in need. Again, you have no reason to assume good faith from comments that are abusive like this, and you are under no obligation to do what Silverman did here. But it's a good illustration of how a conversation can be turned around when we attempt to understand those we're conversing with. If she could do this with someone who did nothing to deserve the benefit of the doubt, maybe we can try giving the benefit to someone who simply disagrees with us. You don't have to go in thinking someone's a dickbag. I mean, really, what do you lose by starting off assuming the best possible version of someone's intentions? Yeah, they might in fact turn out to be just a dickbag, but let them prove that. Make them earn your anger. And if they don't live up to your rigorous standards of dickbaggery, you might find yourself accidentally having a meaningful conversation. Just as you're looking for cues as to what another person's intentions are, make sure you're giving them all the information they need as well. Most people you interact with online have no background or personal context to judge what kind of person you are. There's a lot of ill will on the internet, and people often have no reason to assume you're coming from a place of sincerity. 93% of communication is nonverbal, meaning that on the internet, we're basically working with 7% ability to convey our tone and meaning. So there is a burden on ourselves to make our intentions clear in any small way that we can. One thing that I think is really cool is this dialect that has emerged from the internet organically in an attempt to signal our absent nonverbal cues. It was born here and it only works here. Have you ever tried to insert LOL into an in-person conversation? No, you haven't. Why would you do that to somebody? Assuming that I'm trying to come off as considerate to the other person, which usually I am, I try to find something, however small, that I agree with to start off my reply. Showing a little empathy can signal that you're there to discuss, not just attack. But make sure you're using genuine statements, not just transparent lip service to feign civility. Because often the worst offense is no offense. Also, try not to assume that just because you've read something or heard about a specific situation that everyone has. I get comments all the time saying that I'm obviously referring to some specific instance or person. And when I read those comments, the first thing I think is, wait, what? Who? I don't even know who that person is. I don't even know what that event's about. I don't even know who I am or what I'm doing most of the time. Wait, actually, who are all you people? If listening doesn't get you enough clarity into the intentions of someone's comment, you can always do the simplest method. Ask them. Ask them to clarify. Ask them what they meant by their statement. If nothing else, this can allow bad actors to prove that they're being shitty, removing yourself from just making accusations. Give them the rope. Whether they use it as a lifeline or a noose is on them at that point. I've talked before about the Socratic method, and while Socrates himself had his share of bad takes, I do find the method of asking questions in order to come to a better understanding not only brings about more fruitful conversation, it helps to give your message a non-combative tone. But the trick here is to be sincere with your questions and convey that you're honestly open to considering their answer. Again, we get a better conversation when we don't go into our questions loaded with an assumption. Tearing into someone based solely on your assumptions causes the response to be a defense rather than an explanation. Frame your questions with the possibility of getting a response you don't expect. Otherwise, it's just an attack with a question mark on the end. The internet is a vast playground with everyone from different ages and walks of life. These experiences, or lack thereof, can lead to misunderstandings and even friendly fire. To the elder millennials, the Gen Xers, even the boomers, remember that a lot of the online community is quite younger than you and can often be extra passionate, even sometimes reckless with their commentary. This passion can be good, we need it, but it can also mean sometimes they've yet to deal with many of the experiences you have. I know if I had to engage online with the 15-year-old me, or even the 25-year-old me for that matter, I would reach through the computer and strangle myself in some sort of meta murder-suicide. Just look at that little fucking shithead. Like, I just want to hit him with a toaster. Fresh blood is essential to keeping the movement from stagnating and to introduce bold new ideas. What they have to say is valid, even if sometimes emotionally charged and unpredictable. Think about how you were when you were younger and change your tone and rebuttals accordingly. Try picturing yourself in a room talking to a 14-year-old. Would you use the same tone and wording as with someone in their 30s and 40s? And maybe you would, but you'd probably at least be aware that their age and experiences might contribute to their reasoning, good, bad, or confusing as it may be. Also consider that the issues young people face are often very different than what you see in your own life. Make sure you're not infantilizing their genuine concerns. And to the new guard, the young millennials, the Zoomers, the people who were told that Greedo shot first. Remind yourself that you're possibly talking to people that grew up in a different time, whose formative years might not have had the same easy access to new viewpoints that you have. Years and years of dealing with oppression changes people, for better or worse. Consider what they've been through when you make your comments. Even if you've been faced with the same issues, those that have been dealing with it for decades could have some valuable insight that you can use in your own struggles. In my first year after becoming a teacher, I came in with all these grand ideas, and often when talking with more seasoned teachers, I felt like they were just bittered and stuck in their ways. Many times I was right, but looking back now, there was a lot of information that could have made me a better teacher. They had faced many of the same issues I was confronting, and had many years of trial and error to find solutions that I hadn't considered. I often wonder how much more effective I would be now had I at least taken more of their thoughts into careful consideration. Even if I ultimately decided their ideas weren't what works for me, it could have allowed me to avoid some of the pitfalls that they'd already gone through. And also consider that they may have aged out of some of these struggles. It's possible they're literally unaware of the difficulties you face. Sometimes it's your turn to be the educator. Sometimes we need your guidance. At least give us the opportunity to learn. Big babies like me sometimes need your help. Sometimes we're confused and lost in the forest of new ideas. Or maybe it's a forest of old ideas that we were told our whole lives were too scary to enter. Some of us might just need you to guide the way. And now some lightning round tips, because this video is getting really long. Just read your stuff before hitting send. Sometimes you don't even have to hit send. If you already did and the combo's gotten out of hand, it's also okay too. Do you know how good it feels to just remove yourself from a shitty conversation, knowing the other person is just screaming into the void? Oh. We all have our favorite online people to stand, but just because you like their online persona doesn't mean you have to immediately jump to their defense when they say something disagreeable, nor do you have to immediately cancel them. We're all just people, full of contradictions and mistakes. And honestly, you're only getting one part of who they really are that's been carefully cultivated to present a certain image. I'm not even all that nice, and I'm barely even social. I am pretty soft though. Not everything's about you. It'll make you look smarter, and you won't have to hold on to a lie if it turns out you're wrong. And if you did that, but you're still wrong, then none of us are always right. You knew that, right? Right? Okay, so we should probably talk about this one a little longer. This is probably the most important thing anyone can take away from this video. Sometimes you're gonna get things wrong. Sometimes you're gonna find yourself on the receiving end of some solid reasoning that you hadn't considered. And that's okay. We're all fallible blobs of fat and electricity piloting meat mechs. The fact that we understand anything in the world around us is a miracle. So we're allowed to get things wrong sometimes and grow when we do. Every so often, stop and ask yourself if you're so adamant that you're right because indeed you are, or are you just digging your heels in? And if maybe you were incorrect, or maybe you misspoke, let go of your grip. Just let it go. Now, I know as well as anyone that that's not always easy to do. We rely on ego to captain these meat mechs, and it's pretty disconcerting to think it made an oopsie. But there are some things we can do to pacify that stubborn ego-tater while allowing ourselves to grow and admit maybe we've gotten something wrong. There are ways to phrase your admission that removes any need for victors and losers while still admitting fault. Things like, hey, maybe I didn't think about what I was saying, or I guess I never thought about that, or simply, that makes sense. Or if you truly were just, wrong, You can try mustering up the strength to just say it. I was wrong. If you feel it's warranted, a good sorry can also go a long way. If someone's being considerate, you can even go as far as to finish them off with a thank you. Here, I'll show you. If you watched my second YouTube walkout video, you might notice that I was pretty tough on who's considered a scab. For some people, I came off pretty hurtful, and I was quite overzealous with my definition. I was really angry at the time to see some people on the left tearing down those trying in whatever way they could to make a change. I was at the very least unclear about what I wanted people to think about. While I was hoping to convey that I had a problem with people specifically trying to undermine the cause, I hadn't considered at the time that many people simply just didn't agree with the methods and didn't participate due to their own values. Lumping them in with actual bad actors was a failure on my part. I was wrong. Does that fix everything? I don't know. If it didn't for you, then there's more than likely a chance you'd already given up on me anyways, and that's fair if you did. But if it does help to bring us to a better place, then it was worth it. My ego will be okay. I'll let him watch some Pokemon later. It's okay to come to a new understanding. To be honest, it's usually really hard to shit on someone when they're being honest enough to admit they were wrong. It's an amazing dampener to aggression. To go back to the Sarah Silverman tweet, I actually think the most impressive part of this interaction came from the attacker. He came in belligerent and swinging, but after hearing a little compassion from Silverman, was willing to admit he was the one being shitty. And the response from not only Silverman, but dozens of commenters afterwards were of respect and praise. Now imagine the responses he would have gotten if he had just dug his heels in and kept being an asshole. Now, does this mean you should cave whenever defending a position you feel is right just for appeasement? No. But if after doing your reflection you find yourself changing your viewpoint, don't be afraid to say that. Don't let your ego get in the way of becoming a better person and helping anyone participating or viewing to become better as well. If none of us are willing to grow or change, then what's the point of any discourse in the first place? Other than to score a sweet dunk and make yourself feel better. We're all in this web together, so let's work together. And maybe if we can be a little less dumpy to each other, it won't be so much of a dump. That's it. That's all I got. A lot of this you probably already know, but maybe sometimes we just don't stop and think about it when we're engaging. I know I need reminders once in a while, and if nothing else, maybe this will remind myself to be a little less of a dick. So now it's your turn. Maybe you have your own ideas. Head down to the comments section and let me know. And while you're there, hit the like, subscribe, and maybe share this with people. It really does help me. Hey folks, thanks for watching. Do you hate money? If you want, I could take some of that off of your hands so you don't have to. I will do that. You can just go give it to me by going to patreon.com/softboysocialclub. And so you don't have to deal with it. And then I will use it to buy food. I will eat it. And you will never have to see it again. Because I love you.